Welcome back. We're going to jump into the second video for 5th grade, and these are all constructed response problems. So we have 3 1-point problems, 5 2 points, and a 3-point problem. The first 3 are all 1 point, so I don't have to show my work. I can just put in a final answer. So let's jump right in. So for number 36, the answer on the line has to be 896. That's all they want to see, is all you would have to put in into the space. So let's look at the problem and see how you got there. Calvin has a box in the shape of a right rectangular prism, so I already know this is a volume problem. He packs it with unit cubes to determine the volume. The dimensions are listed below. The length is 16 inches, the width is 7, and the height is 8. Each unit cube is a 1 cubic inch. How many does he need to fill in the whole box? So I know we're doing volume is length times width times height, because we know, and I could always just draw it. Here's my length, here's my width, and here's my height. So I'm going to multiply 16 times 7 times 8. I'm going to choose to multiply these two numbers together to get 56. So 16 times 56. Now for this, I'm going to go use my lattice. You can use traditional. I just wanted to use lattice. Alright, here's 16 and 56. I'm going to change the color. 6 times 5 is 30. 1 times 5 is 5. 6 times 6 is 36. 1 times 6 is 6. And now I can add them up. This row just has 6. 6 plus 3 plus 0 is 9. 0 plus 5 plus 3 is 8. And I had a 0 in front. So this is my final answer, 896. No matter what way you use to multiply is fine, as long as you get a final product of 896. Hit pause and grade yourself. If you got 896, give yourself a point. If you had anything else, you have to give yourself a 0. Here's our next 1-point problem. A family takes a cake to a party. When the family is ready to leave the party, 3/4 of the cake is left. The family leaves half of the leftover cake at the party and takes the remaining cake home. What fraction of the cake did the family take home? So the final answer for this is 3/8. So how are we getting there? Okay, so let's go into it piece by piece, because there might be some confusion. I know that some, even the first time I did this, I was like, well, there was 3/4 of a cake, and if they ate half of it, wouldn't there just be 1/4 left? So that was the first time I read it and thought about it. So I figured there might be something in the way this is written out. Let's look at it a little bit more carefully. Let me cross this out. All right. When the family is ready to leave the party, 3/4 of the cake is left. Okay, so we know we're starting with 3/4. And it says the family leaves half of the leftover cake at the party. So I need half of this, and takes the other half home. All right, so I need to find out what half of 3/4 is. Okay, so what is half of 3/4? So I'm going to multiply by a half, and that is how I get 3/8. Okay, so that was the reading part that was tricky, that they're taking half of it. So another way you could have thought about this is if you had 3/4. So let's say that's like all this cake. What they're saying is they took half of it home with them. And I want to know what this piece is. That's what they're really doing. They're cutting it in half. So half of 3/4 is 3/4 times 1/2. All right, so if you had 3/8, give yourself 1 point. If you had anything else, including 1/4 like I did the first time, you have to give yourself a 0. And this is the very last of the 1 point. A teacher has 55 sheets of stickers, and so 55 sheets of stickers and 1,320 stickers. So this feels like a division problem. Each sticker has the same number of stickers. Each sheet has the same number of stickers. How many stickers on each sheet? So the answer for this is 24. So this is absolutely a division problem. And again, they don't want to see your work in this. They just want to see how you got your final answer. So again, what I kind of like to do is I like to add on the side at least the first few for 55. So 55 plus 55 is 110, plus 55 is 165, plus another 55 is 220. So just to get me started thinking. All right, I go one digit at a time. I could not do 1 divided by 55 or 13 divided by 55. How many 55s can I get out of 132? I can do 2 of them, because if I did 3, this would be too many. So 110, and I can subtract, and I get 22. Bring down to 0. How many 55s can I get from 120? 1, 2, 3, 4. And 4 times 55 is 220. So there you have it. So again, give yourself 1 point if you had 24, but you have to give yourself 0 points if you had anything else. All right, for the 2 and 3 point questions, I actually pulled up the Nextera site because in New York, this is where you're going to do the rest of your constructive response. Even a 1 point, you just had to type in that 1 point answer. That's pretty easy. But for these, I want you to see how do I do this? How do I show my work and answer the question? So that's why I pulled it up here. And notice there are going to be 2 boxes. On the top, I am going to show my work, and on the bottom, I'm going to put my final answer. So let's start off with this first part here. We move this over. Students in 5th grade measured the length of 12 erasers, and they put their results in a line plot. What is the total length in inches of all the erasers? So even though this is a computer-based test, you have scratch paper for a reason. Use it. Use it to work this out, and then we'll figure out what you're going to put into those boxes. So I'm going to pretend on the left side, this is my paper. Even though it has the questions on it, I know that's not what you're going to get in the test. But I want you to see what I do on my paper, and then I want you to see what I actually transfer onto the computer. So for the first part, I have how many erasers are 1/4? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have 6 groups of 1/4. Matter of fact, I want to write that as 6 times 1/4. Plus, I have 3 times 1/2, plus 3 times 3/4. Okay, so that's what I have here. So already I know I'm going to have to probably type all this in. And now, because these are whole numbers, I want to be able to multiply them as fractions. I'm going to do 6 over 1 times 1/4 plus 3 over 1 times 1/2 plus 3 over 1 times 3/4. This I definitely want to copy. Maybe not the first one, but maybe the second one. And now I'm going to multiply each one. I get 6 over 4 plus 3 over 2 plus 9 over 4. So far, so good. I still want that 3/2. I do want to change it to be fourths. So I'm going to change that to 6/4. Okay, because all I did in my head was to do times 2 to get 4 and times 2. That's all I did. And when I add all of these up together, 6 plus 6 is 12. 12 plus 9 is 21/4. So I can need the 21/4, but I do want to change it to a mixed number. So I would do 21 divided by 4 is 5, and my remainder is 1/4. So out of all of this work that I have on paper, what do I definitely want to put on the equation editor to show work? Well, I kind of need this part here, but then I'd also have to retype this. I don't want to do both, so I definitely want this. And I think someone could figure out why I'm doing 6 over 1, so that's not too much of a stress. And then I'll simplify it, and then I can show the addition. And maybe over here, instead of having this whole extra step to show this, maybe I'll just change that over here. So that I'll automatically just make this into 2/4 to make it easier. All right, so watch how I'm going to type it on the other side. I'm going to start by putting my parentheses, and I know I'm going to have a fraction times a fraction. I'm going to, whoops, I don't want that times a fraction, close parentheses, plus, and I'm going to do the same thing again, a fraction times a fraction, and then plus, once again, a fraction times a fraction. Oops. And I'm just giving myself a little bit, just closing off some of the little spaces. And you don't have to that part, it was just something that honestly was just bothering me. Okay. So now that I have this, I can put in my numbers. 6 over 1 times 1/4 plus 3 over 1 times, and I'm going to put in the 2/4 here. So instead of putting the 1/2, and then my last one was 3 over 1 times 3/4. And then I might even just put a little note here saying I changed the 1/2 to 2/4 in the second parenthesis. Alright, just so in case anyone really wants to know why I did that. Okay, parentheses. There we go. Alright, now I can simplify all of this out, and now I can have just a fraction plus a fraction plus a fraction equal to, in this case, is going to be a fraction. All right, so now I can just put in those answers 6 times, and I'm just copying. So I already know I have 6/4 and 6/4 and 9/4 is equal to 21/4. I convert the mixed number to, I convert the improper fraction to a mixed number. So again, you can kind of see like the only reason I'm doing all this is so that anyone could just follow what I did the entire time. So now I'm going to have 21 over 4 is equal to, and I'm going to have a mixed number. 21 over 4 is equal to, and I'm not doing this again, I'm literally just typing what I already did in my work. There. So here's everything, so they can see all my work, they can follow everything I did, all my steps. I multiplied, I did convert the second fraction to 2/4, I added, and then I changed my improper fraction to a mixed number. And now my final answer is just my mixed number. So 5 and 1/4 inches. And that's it. So that's all they really need in that second box, is only a final answer. So that's everything. But what I really want you to see here is, again, I'm working on paper. I'm not doing this in my head, and I'm not trying to figure it out on the computer as I go. That's just too many extra things that just uses up a lot of my brain power. So instead, I'm going to do all the math on paper, and then I'm just going to decide, well, what do I absolutely need to copy over on the other part, right? Give yourself either 0, 1, or 2 points. Give yourself a point if you got 5 and 1/4 inches. So that's awesome. Give yourself a point there. If you had 21 over 4, you could still have a point there, but I would rather be cautious, because you never know who's going to be the one grading, and if we don't know, sometimes the question may say it has to be a mixed number. This one doesn't, so I guess you can give yourself a point if you have 21 over 4. And then give yourself another point if you showed how you got that number from the line plot. All right, let's look at the next one. Is a 2-point question. We want to know the area of a tabletop, but noticing that every single square tile is only half a foot long. So this is a 2-point. You have to show your work and give an answer. The final answer, so you will give yourself 1 point if you had 8 3/4 square feet. So you can leave that. That's actually 1 point, and then the other point for showing your work. So again, we're pretending we have to do this on paper first. So I'm going to find the dimensions for area. Over here, I noticed there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares. So 5 squares, and each one is half a foot. And then the other side is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 times half a foot. All right, and I'm really just doing area is equal to length times width. So I can see where I'm getting the length. This part over here, I'm just doing this, the 5 times 1/2. And this part here, this dimension, I'm doing here. And these two numbers are going to be multiplied together. Okay, so let's solve this out. 5/1 times 1/2 times 7/1 times 1/2. And that's giving me 5/2 times 7/2, which is equal to 35/4. And then I'm changing 35/4 to 8 3/4. That's all my work. Now, some kids probably, instead of just doing all this work, some of you might have just went and done, all right, this is half plus a half plus a half. That's 2, 2.5. So if you did this, that's okay. So some of you might have done that and then done the same thing with the other side. So half a half is 1, 2, 3.5. So I could see some kids just doing this. So let's actually just show the difference in work here and how we will put it in. So if you had that, then you're still doing 2.5 times 3.5, and you're still going to have to convert them to mixed numbers, and you would end up getting 5.5 times 7.5, and you would still get the same answer, 35/4. So whichever one works for you is fine. All right. So now what am I going to transfer? What am I going to put over into my work? So I could pretend like, let's say this was my original, and I changed them to improper fractions to get this. And then I changed this to a mixed number. That's fine as a pathway for me to put in. So let's do that. So I'm going to put my mixed number first. Here's a mixed number times a mixed number. And I'm going to put that in. So 2.5 times 3.5, and that's just one row. And then I'm deciding to change my mixed number to improper. So there's one sentence. So I'm just going to do that now. So I'm going to have this times this. Okay, so now I have 5 halves times 7 halves. Okay, done. And that is going to be equal to 35/4. Done. Change improper fraction to mixed number. And I'm going to extend this down a little bit. So these 3 little lines, I can pull them down with my finger to make it longer. So now I'm going to have my fraction is equal to a mixed number. So 35/4 is equal to 8 3/4. And that's my final answer. So my final answer here, I'm just going to put, oops, so I didn't want it in that row. Let's delete that. I wanted it down here. Really weird that they had it here. Okay, there we go. 8 and 3/4 square feet. Matter of fact, I kind of want this to be a full sentence, to be honest. So let's write a full sentence here. Let's delete this. The area of the table cloth. The area of the tabletop is 8 and 3/4 square feet. Boom, that's it. So again, look and see, like, not everything I put here, not everything that I write has to be over here. So this is what can make it really helpful for you as you're trying to decide. Instead of being overwhelmed and thinking all of my work has to be retyped and recopied, really we're thinking like what's really essential to show that I know how to get the right answer. So again, give yourself a point if you had 8 3/4, or even if you had 35/4 square feet. And then give yourself a point if you show how you got to these numbers. Let's look at the next one, another 2-point question. Steve and Rosa have a baseball card collection. Steve has 1/8 as many baseball cards as Rosa. So the number of Steve's cards is equal to 1/8 of Rosa's. And my question is, who has more cards? And include what I know about fractions. So just by looking at this, if I know that he has 1/8 of Rosa's, I know that he's going to have only a part of what Rosa has. So for example, if Rosa has 24 cards, Steve would have 1/8 of 24, which would give him less cards. It would give him 24/8, or 3 cards. So this is just an example so I can see what it means when I have 1/8 of the cards. So here's how I can explain that, and I want to make sure I'm including what I know about fractions. Rosa has more cards than Steve. Steve has only, and the Y is missing there, only 1/8 as many cards as Rosa. And when you multiply by a number less than 1, you get a smaller product. Okay. So that's definitely showing something I know about fractions. So this thinking, so what I might do in the show your work part is I might show Steve's cards are equal to 1/8 of Rosa's cards if Rosa had 24 cards. I would multiply 24 by 1/8 to find Steve's cards. And then 24 times, actually I want to do it as a fraction. 24 times 1/8 is equal to 24/1 times 1/8 is equal to 24/8, or 3 cards. Okay, so that's just my example, my thinking. So now all I do is recopy my other thinking in the explanation box, because that's I have to show in my explanation. Rosa has more cards than Steve. And notice how I do all my thinking, my math thinking work on paper first, because I want to get rid of any tech challenges, because sometimes by putting my answers on a computer, that takes thinking in its own right. So I get all my thinking, my math thinking on the page, so that now when I'm putting my answers on Nextera, I'm literally just copying. I'm not thinking of anything new. I'm just copying my thoughts. Steve has only 1/8. As many cards as Rosa. When you multiply a number by a number less than 1, you get a smaller product. I'm even going to add a new sentence. If you multiply the number of cards Rosa has by 1/8, the product will be smaller because 1/8 is less than 1. Alright, and that's it. And then I just reread it one more time just to make sure that it's clear and that I said what I want to say, and to slow myself down. Because you're going to feel at this point like you just want to get it over with. You just want to finish this. But fight that for a minute and just reread it. Take a breath and read it one more time. Rosa has more cards than Steve. Steve has only 1/8 as many cards as Rosa. When you multiply a number by, see, I found an error. A number by a number less than 1, you get a smaller product. If you multiply the number of cards Rosa has by 1/8, the product will be smaller because 1/8 is less than 1. Done. And that's all I have to put it. So I'm showing what I know about multiplying by fractions, and I'm showing what I know about this part. If you multiply those cards, if you multiply by a number less than 1, and I'm even going to put a fraction less than 1, you get a smaller product. Awesome. All right, so again, give yourself a point if you said Rosa has more cards. You get 1 point for that. And then you also get a point if you can explain how you know that's true. Okay, so give yourself either 0, 1, or 2 points. All right, another 2-point problem. Again, I'm going to have to do some explaining over here. A student incorrectly wrote the number, so I already know they're wrong. That means I'm going to have to figure out where they're wrong and give them the right answer and explain it. 362 and 480 thousandths in expanded form. So this is what they wrote. What error did the student make? So what error did they make when writing the number in expanded form? Be sure to include the correct number in expanded form. Okay, so this is place value. So I'm going to start making my little chart, and I know I have tenths, hundredths, thousandths, and then the other side, ones, 10, and 100. All right, my first number is 362. And that's why I know there's a decimal there. 408 thousandths. So that means my 8 has to go, or my number has to end over here. So 408, I know how to write 408 to the thousandths. So what did she write? She put 3 times 100, which makes sense because the 3 is in the hundredths place. 6 times 10, that makes sense. 2 times 1, again, makes sense because it's 2 in the ones place. 4 times 1/10, yes. And you see, are you guys kind of seeing how this chart helps me? Because I can just see like what I'm multiplying by. Super helpful. I really like this chart a lot. All right, I shouldn't have anything in the hundredths place, so I don't need to write 0 times 100. And then up, she wrote, but that's the mistake she wrote. She wrote, or the student wrote, 8 times 100. So this is my error, when it should have been 8 times 1,000. So silly error. It was probably just a maybe rushing, and they were writing tenths and they knew hundreds was next, but instead of putting 0 to the hundreds, they did all this. Okay, so I found the mistake. The mistake is right here, and I know what the correct answer is. So this is how I'm going to answer it. The standard form is, because they did ask me to put it, what error did they make? Be sure to include the correct answer number in standard form. The standard form is 362 and 408 thousandths, and the error was the 8 was in the hundreds place instead of the thousands place. Okay, so I kind of have my, this is awesome to start off with. I'm going to start putting in the explanation over here, and we're just going to start by typing the standard form of the standard form is 362 and 408 thousandths. And then I have to say, be sure to include the answer. The error, the student made an error in the hundredths place. Instead of, error was, the student made an error in the hundredths place. They put the 8 in the hundredths place instead of the thousands place. And then I'll even go a little bit further. They should have written, and then this is where it can get a little long, but that's all right. 3 times 100. Let me put the right times. 100 plus 6 times 10 plus 2 times 1 plus 4 times, now I need my fraction, 1/10 plus 8 times 1/1,000. And isn't that crazy how just not forgetting that one little zero changed our whole final answer? So that changed everything. So we just want to be pretty careful about that. Okay, so there we have it. I'm going to reread it in a second. Just making sure that I have enough space for everything. Yep, all right. Easiest way to get it. So let's reread our answer one more time just to make sure it makes sense. The standard form is 362 and 408 thousandths. The student made an error in the hundreds place when writing in expanded form. They put the 8 in the hundreds place instead of the thousands place. They should have written 3 times 100 plus 6 times 10 plus 2 times 1 plus 4 times 10 plus 8 times 1,000. And done. Makes total sense. Alright, so give yourself a point if you wrote the answer correctly in standard form and you found the error in the hundredths place and told them where to fix it. Score yourself as a 0, 1, or 2. Alright, here's the last 2-point problem. And again, see how they're asking us to explain? Not so much even showing the work. We're still doing the work on paper, but we're explaining. And it's a volume problem because I see a 3D shape and volume has 3 dimensions. So I know it's going to be volume. The base of a right rectangular prism is shown below. How many more cubes are needed to complete fill the right rectangular prism. Okay, so they already gave us a row, like a slice of it, and it has a 6 by 2. So our base has 12 cubes. And I need how many rows? I need another 7 rows of this. So I need another 7 rows of 12 or 84. Okay. Let's see, does that make sense? So the volume of the entire one, if it was all 3 dimensions, I would have 8 times 6 times 2. 8 times 6 is 48 times 2, and that's 96. So the total volume is 96, and remember, they already gave us 12 cubes. So I still get 84. So awesome sauce. We know how many more cubes we need. So now we just have to explain how we got the 84. Okay, so here's my draft thinking notes. 84 more cubes are needed to fill the prism. The volume is 8 times 6 times 2 is 96 cubic units. There are 12 cubes already, so 96 minus 12 is 84 cubic units to fill the cube. Okay, so that's just my draft, and now I'm going to rewrite it here on the other side. To fill the prism, we need 84 more cubes. And you can see sometimes I do like little on the spot editing. The total volume equals 8 times 6 times 6 times 2, which is 96 cubic units. There are 12 cubes already in the prism. 2 groups of 6 cubes, or 12. And you can see sometimes I'm reading and I'm like, they may need a little bit more information. I can just add it, and I'm editing as I go. Okay, there are already 12 cubes in the prism. So 96 minus, there we go. So I did 96 minus 12 to get 84 cubic units to fill the prism. So great. That's one great explanation that shows how I got the total number of units. Another way we could have said it was the prism, and I'm giving just another answer just because the prism has 12 cubes at the base. The height is 7 units, is 8 units, so you need 7 more groups of 12 or 84. So that could have been the other answer that you could have put in cubic units. Okay, so I'll just sit and let's reread it. I'm even going to put just, here's another way to think about it. Okay, so here's my first answer. To fill the prism, we need 84 more cubes. So I said exactly what you need. The total volume equals 8 times 6 times 2, which is 96 cubic units. There are 12 cubes already in the prism, 2 groups of 6 cubes, or 12. So I did 96 minus 12 to get 84 cubic units to fill the prism. Done. Awesome answer. And I can just leave it like that. Now, if I did it the other way, if you thought of it like rows, like I have 7 rows, then you could have written an answer like this. The prism has 12 cubes at the base. The height is 8 units, so you need 7 more groups of 12 or 84 cubic units. Because 7 times 12 is 84. So that's just another way you could have if you had thought about it the other way. And that's it. So you do not have to make this more complicated. You literally, whatever you do on paper, when they say explain, you just like have to explain how you got there. Give them the answer that is, when it says find this, give them that answer. Restate the question, give them the answer. And then the rest of it is explaining how you determined it, how you got to that answer. And you just want to make sure it's super clear. I like to write my first draft on paper first and then recopy on the computer, because the second time, when I'm writing it a second time, I'm making it even better. If I type it for the first time while I'm thinking about it, that might not be my best work. So don't be afraid to write it first on paper, and then as you type it, it's going to look and sound even better. And then just reread it to yourself one more time. So give yourself either 0, 1, or 2 points. A point if you got 84, and another point if you explain how you got there. We are here at the very last problem. It is a 3-point problem. And while I was preparing for this, I will tell you that the word that came up was beastly. Like, I love reading books by Roald Dahl, who writes Matilda and the Witches. And when he talks about things, he goes, that it was a beastly child, when they're not a really likable child. This was not a likable problem. And I'm not saying that to get us frustrated, but I am saying that there's just a lot of steps here. So this is definitely meant to be challenging at a point where it's the very, very end, like you're almost at the finish line. And this is where some kids will get super tired and just give up. And this is like a test to, okay, when you're already tired, when you've done so much, this is where you have to dig a little bit deeper to do one more. So that's what makes this super challenging. All right, so we're going to get into this, and I'm going to slow myself down as we're explaining it, because we're just going to do this a piece at a time. It's not impossible. It's just, it takes a little bit more work. And that's why it's not a 2-point, it's a 3-point problem. Okay, Math Marbles, let's go. Liam makes and sells handmade blankets. He buys 18 yards of fabric at a rate of $6.75 per yard. Liam uses 1.5 yards of fabric to make each blanket and uses all the fabric, so he uses it all up. Liam sells each blanket for $18.75. What is the profit Liam makes after buying the fabric and selling the blankets? Okay, 5th graders, profit is the money that you actually make after everything you've spent. So we're going to figure out how much did he spend altogether. And then after he made every blanket and he sells every single one, how much money did he make? And then we're going to take what he made and we're going to subtract what he spent. Okay, that's what profit means. It's the money you have left after your spending. All right, so we're going to start at the beginning of the story. I'm thinking about this as a story where first he buys the blankets. This is going to be his expenses. So he buys 18 yards for $6.75. So I know I'm going to multiply this for $6.75 per yard. Okay. So let's do that part first. $6.75 times 18. And take your time. This is when you're going to be the most tired. So this is where you have to be the most disciplined to make yourself slow down instead of rushing to get it over with. 8 times 5 is 40. 7 times 8 is 56 plus 4 is 60. 4 times 6 is 48 plus 6 is 54. And then, I'm just going to times 1. This will be easy. 6, 7, and 5. Because I know that 1 times 5 is 5, 1 times 7 is 7, and 1 times 6 is 6. So he has already spent 5 plus 6 plus 1 is 12. Oh, and there's a decimal point here, so 1, 2. So he's already spent $121.50. Okay? Those are his expenses. Now we want to see how much he's going to make. So, okay, he has 18 yards. He uses 1.5 yards to make blankets. So now he makes the blankets. So he has 18 yards, and for every single blanket he uses 1.5 yards. So this is going to be division. All right, so it's really hard for me to divide by a number, by a divisor that has a decimal in it. So watch how I'm going to rewrite it. I'm going to make this 10 times bigger, but I'm also going to make this 10 times bigger. So I'm going to have 15 into 180. Okay, so I'm preserving that part. 15 goes into 18 one time. 3, bring down to 0. 15 goes into 32 times. Okay, so he can make 12 blankets. I kind of misspelled blankets here, didn't I? Okay, so he has 12 blankets. All right, now he's gonna sell. Now he sells his blankets. So he has 12 blankets and he sells them for $18.75. All right, so we're gonna multiply. So notice how I'm doing it piece by piece and only thinking about this little piece at a time. Now I'm just doing the multiplying for this part. 7 times 2 is 14, plus 1 is 15. 8 times 2 is 16, plus 1 is 17. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. Okay, and luckily I'm multiplying by 1 again, so 5, 7, 8, and 1. Now I can just add. 14 plus 1 is 15. 4 plus 8 is 12. Okay, and don't forget the decimal, so 1, 2, 1, 2. So it's not like adding. I know that I have to move that decimal over 2 times. All right, so here we go. Our final part was, we want to know the profit, which is pretty much what he made minus what he spent. So $225 is what he made minus $120.50, which is what he spent. Okay, so we're right here at the very, very end. So I like to use, coming from here, can I subtract? 2 minus 1, yes, I can subtract. 2 minus 2, yes, I can subtract. 5 minus 1, yes, I can subtract. I cannot do the 0 minus 5, I have to borrow. So I'm saying I'm being this slow on purpose because some kids will do all this and they'll make a mistake right here with the subtracting. Here's 10. Okay, I can do 10 minus 5 and I can do 0 minus 0. All right, so 0 minus 0 is 0. 10 minus 5 is 5. 4 minus 1 is 3. 2 minus 2 is 0. And 2 minus 1 is 1. So his profit is $103.50. Which is what I got. So yeah, a lot of stuff here. There were like 4 different things I had to do in this problem. I had to buy the blankets and figure out how much that was. I had to make the blankets and figure out how many blankets he could make. And then I had to sell the blankets and figure out how much money he makes from that. And then I had to finally get the profit. So this is a lot. I'm not going to pretend it's not. This was absolutely a lot to do. And so here's the tough part. First, I'm going to put in the final answer. And we're going to start. I'm going to do that part because we have to show our work for the rest. And there's a lot of stuff to show here. There's a lot. So let's put in our final answer. Liam made $103.50 profit. He spent $121.50 on fabric. He made 12 blankets from the fabric and made $225 selling the blankets. 225 minus 103.50 is $103.50 profit. All right, so that's just the final answer. Now we have to show this work. So again, you're gonna feel overwhelmed, but we know the story. We know that we did 4 different things in this whole part. Do I have to write everything though? I want you to really, really watch this. I'm not going to write everything. Instead, I'm going to show what operation I did and how I got that answer. So first, Liam buys the fabric. So I did 18 yards times 675. So he bought it at 675 a yard. Okay? So first he did all that and he made 18 yards times 675 is 121.50. Oops, I typed the wrong number. Wouldn't that be silly? You do all this work and that's a mistake you make? So that's the very first thing. Notice I'm not going to recopy everything that I wrote here. I could, if you really wanted to, you could just do 675 and then on the next go down a line and do times 18 and go down a line. I don't want to do that. But I am showing that I know what the answer is because I'm doing it on paper. If you have an iPad, you can absolutely use the pencil icon and you can click that little icon and type all you want. Again, we're not going to do that right now. If I had this, I would do this. But a lot of kids don't have this. So I'm doing this work as if I don't, and I did it all on paper. All right, so let's go to my second step. Second, Liam made blankets. Each blanket is 1.5 yards. 18 yards, and I'm going to just write divided by 1.5 yards is 12. He made 12 blankets. Done. That's it. That's all I'm writing. And then third, he sells each blanket for $18.75. Okay? So 12 blankets times $18.75 is equal to, actually I want to put equal sign instead for all of these, is equal to $225. Done. To find the profit, I subtracted what he spent from what he made. So 225 minus, and how much did he spend? 121.50 is equal to 103.50. All right, and that's it. I'm done. So let's look at what I did here. First, so all I did was each little part. So all of this, look at all this math work that I did. I am choosing not to recopy all of it, but I'm saying what I did and what answer I got. So first, Liam buys fabric at $6.75 a yard. 18 yards times 675 is equal to 121.50. Boom. Second part, he made the blankets. Second, Liam made blankets. Each blanket is 1.5 yards. So I did 18 yards divided by 1.5 yards is equal to 12 blankets. So again, I'm not trying to recopy all of this, but I am showing what I multiplied and what answer I got. Super important because a lot of us are constantly doing all the computations, and then we can always go back to it a little bit later, but we want to communicate what we did. Third, he sells the blanket. He sells each blanket for $18.75. So that's this step here. 12 blankets times $18.75 is equal to $225. To find a profit, this is the last step. I subtracted what Liam spent from what he made. So 225 minus 121.50 is $103.50. And then my final answer, Liam made $103.50 profit. He spent $121.50 on fabric. He made 12 blankets from the fabric and made $225 selling the blankets. 225 minus 103.50 is, oops, so there was a mistake here. Minus, and this is why we read, minus 121.50 is 103.50 in profit. Whew. And done. Do you know there are some teachers who, because if I had left that 103.50 is equal to 103.50, would have taken away a point? Out of all this, I would have done all this amazing work, and because if I had not caught that little mistake, I would have lost a point. So again, this is why we reread our answers at the end, just to make sure that we're clear and to just check to make sure that what we're communicating is accurate. But whew, that is it. That is the end of the 5th grade test. Now, what you are going to do is you're going to go back from part 1 and part 2, and you're going to count up all the points that you got. Every single multiple choice is 1 point. Every single constructive response was either 1, 2, or 3 points. Count them all up. Okay, so you're going to go in and you're adding up all these points. So you should have had, out of 35 multiple choice questions, that's 35 points. And there were 3 1 points, 5 2 points, and 1 3 points. So even though there were 44 questions, it all adds up to 51 points. Now, using that, here's the breakdown for 51 points. So if you had a perfect 51 out of 51, then you will give yourself even more than a level 4. And I made this a hard test on purpose, but it gives you all the levels here. So let's say you only had 28 points. If you had 28 points, then you would have a score of about a 2.91, a level 2, just below a level 3. So for the New York State test, scores are given as from a 1, a 2, so anything more than 19 points, you get into the 2s. When you pass 29 points, you're in the 3s. Actually, let's highlight these. And anything more than 48 points, you would have been in the 4s. Okay? To be proficient in math, we do aim for a level 3. But not everyone gets there at the end of 5th grade, and that's okay. But we do try and make growth each time. So using this video, I hope this really helps you. So you can use a lot of these strategies and these tools to help you do the very best you can. And you still have a few weeks to really study and practice before the state test. That's why we're doing this. So if there were strategies in here or questions that you found really challenging, put it in the chat. Put it in there. Put it in the comments. Let me know if there are other videos you need help with or you want more practice on, so we can make them before the state test. And you could always go back and look at these strategies again and again. And I will tell you that for the 5th grade test, the way it's designed, this is how I designed this test. There are, so you can see the different types. Most of this test was fractions. Big part of it was just operations with fractions, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing fractions. And then the next biggest part was base 10 questions, like place value and doing things with numbers. We had a bunch of data and measuring questions like volume. That was the next part up here. And then we had a few geometry problems, like just the smallest percentage. But that's it for the 5th grade state test. Please use this to help practice and study. and continue studying and let me know if there's anything else you need. I know you can do this. We're just going to focus and really push deep to do the very best that we can. All right, Math Marvels, I will see you in the next video. Be well. Bye.